you might wonder why a dentist would be interested in helping people learn how to breathe. Well, it's all part of my personal story. About 6 years ago, I have been a lifelong recreational athlete, participating in all kinds of events, dancing, running, skiing, long-distance cycling. And one day, all of a sudden, I got what I thought was a cold, and it didn't get any better, and it started getting worse. And when I went to the gym, I was short of breath, and it started to continue, but I thought again I would get better eventually. Went to my doctor, gave me some stuff for respiratory infections, on and on and on. A month later, I'm still suffering. Then I couldn't breathe, and then I was waking up breathless, to which I took myself to the emergency room. I didn't want to scare anybody. Went to the emergency room for breathing treatments, steroids, and a referral to a pulmonologist. The pulmonologist, he took one look at my lungs, did the lung test, the breathing. My breathing was 100% fine in his office. So what he said to me was, Cheryl, you're not 25 anymore. Well, I'm well aware of my chronological age, and I was a little bit upset with that. So I kept looking and trying to figure out what was wrong with me. I have a holistic physician with whom I've treated for over 20 years, and he had no answers for me. He gave me nebulizers with hydrogen peroxide compounds and thought I was allergic to everything, had me set up bottles with things of cotton to absorb the things in the air that might make me allergic. So this went on and on and on, to the point at which, in order to exercise, I was giving an emergency inhaler, steroids, more medication, and every time I went down during the seasonal changes, it got worse and worse and worse. The trips to the emergency room, I couldn't go more than 15 minutes without exercising without an inhaler, and it got really scary. So, not to mention, I happen to be a dentist who's interested in facial development and breathing and sleeping. And I've been helping people sleep better at night for over 20 years now. So at one of my conferences about 5 years ago, I was introduced to this technique called butycal breathing. But I didn't think I had a breathing problem because I was an athlete and I could do things, and I really hadn't connected the two yet. So, about a year and a half ago, I was at a breathing conference, and I saw the breathing guy, this guy Patrick McCune, and I couldn't see his lecture because I had to go home. I already had my plane fare booked. So, I thought, oh, that's kind of cool. Went home. The next day I went to work, came home, and I had bronchitis. And if anybody's had bronchitis, you know that that's the feeling that you get that you might die. So I couldn't go to work for a couple days, and I didn't want to go to the emergency room, didn't want to go to urgent care, because all I knew that they would give me is more steroids, more inhalers, and just say, have a nice day, you have asthma. Who gets asthma at age 56 anyway? I don't know. Anyway, so I'm at home, and I think to myself, breathing. Well, I can't breathe right now. Maybe I'll Google this breathing stuff. And P.S., I did buy all the books 2 years before at another sleep convention, but they were on my shelf at the office, so they were no good to me. So I went online, butycal breathing, and I got a lecture from a guy from Australia. Hour and a half. I learned all about the chemistry of breathing, which I probably should have learned in dental school, probably did, but it wasn't impressed upon us that this was important. So I'm listening to this and saying, this is really interesting. This is me. He's describing me. So I do a couple of the things that this gentleman tells us to do prior to what would be prior to taking breathing instruction. By the end of the day, I started feeling better, and I was needing my inhaler less. That night, I was too wrapped up with trying to keep my lips together because it turns out I was a habitual mouth breather. The next day, I came into the office because I had to do some surgeries. I was still sick, but I had a couple people waiting for me. And I taught everybody there how to clear their noses and to keep their lips shut, because that's what that lecturer told me. And that next night is when it happened. Went to bed, made sure my lips were together, set that intention, kept my tongue in the roof of my mouth, and it's the first time in my adult life that I slept 9 hours without waking up. My husband, when I woke up, in fact, asked me, what did I take? And I told him, I said, I didn't take anything last night, because up until then, I had been taking a plethora of medication, trying to figure out which one would work for me that night. Anything from an antihistamine to a steroid, to inhalers, to natural supplements that were supposed to clear your sinuses and make you breathe better. Well, that was just the start. And then what I started to do was read more about the technique. So even when I was exercising, I would make sure that my lips were together. I was only breathing through my nose. So this catapulted into me figuring out that I needed to be trained in this. We then trained our staff with a first level training for Buteyko breathing instruction that summer. So that would have been the summer of 2014. And then I became a Buteyko educator and went to the conference and met with a gentleman who's been doing this in Australia for over 14 years. And he has a program called Breathing Well Orthopostural Training. So this is when the rubber really met the road, because Roger Price, this gentleman, had a method of showing us what our breathing was like at the beginning to know how we could improve it. Whereas the traditional Buteyko training, it was more subjective, just how you feeling? Oh, you're better. I'm a dentist. I need to know where we started, where we're going to get to, and I need to see change. So now we offer in our office the capnometry availability, which tells us how much carbon dioxide we retain in our lungs after an out-breath. It also tells us how many breaths per minute we breathe, because we know what normal and what optimal are in those levels. So without getting into the breathing chemistry right now, I just wanted to let you know that this is personal. If I could, I would get up on a rooftop and shout at people that they can improve their health, they can give up a lot of their medication, and they can feel like they're healthy, like they're really living the life instead of struggling to get through every day, because that's where I had gone. So that's why I'm into trying to teach my patients about breathing, because it all starts with your face, it starts with where your tongue is, it starts with your mouth and your nose. And just to make you think about it, there's a nice little saying we have that you should breathe through your mouth as often as you eat through your nose. There'll be more to come. You can see some of the other video instruction on the chemistry of breathing, and I invite you to watch them. Thank you.